Hello knitters, Barbara Benson here. I am an independent knitwear designer who also likes to make videos here on my YouTube channel, Watch Barbara Knit. Make sure to check in the description notes below the video where you will find links to all of my online shenanigans, including how to get my patterns to knit for yourself, how to join the Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group, how to buy my merchandise and support me on Patreon, and there will be a lot of links to a lot of different technique videos in today's description notes, because today's video is a how-to tutorial on how to make a poncho, and it's a specific type of poncho, out of any yarn that you want to make a poncho out of. So I'm pretty excited about this. At the last live we started talking about ponchos, and I got ponchos on the brain. So this is what happened. As I mentioned, I am working on the last Thursday of every month doing a YouTube live where we can chat and have fun. It starts at 7 p.m. Eastern time, so put it in your calendar. So the poncho we are making, modeled as always on the lovely Riker. I have a son, not a daughter. I have Star Trek action figures, not Barbies. So the dashing Commander Riker gets to model all my mini pieces. If you've seen any of my mini shawl tutorials, this is a step-by-step tutorial on how to make a much larger version of this, okay? Not this little tiny one. I mean, you're gonna watch me make the tiny one, but that's not. So, and the poncho can be worn two ways. It can be worn this way, or it can be worn this way. So there you go. Now, what do I mean when I say any yarn? Well, you're gonna have to do some work on this one. The shawl tutorials are a little bit easier to make because essentially I just teach you how to do the setup and then you knit until it's the size you want. For this, because it's any yarn, you're going to have to do a little work ahead of time. Now, the tutorial will be in a moment. I'll put a timestamp up if you want to jump directly to it, but you might want a little more information. So what you have to do is you have to have the yarn that you want and the needle you want to get the fabric that you want. So your best success is going to be if you swatch. I will put a link to how and why to swatch. And what that is to test out your yarn with the needle and see if you like the fabric you get. And then you have to figure out how many stitches per inch you are getting. You do that by knitting your swatch. Because we're knitting in the round, you're going to need to swatch in the round. Or, you know what? If you swatch flat, you'll survive. This isn't something that has to fit, if you know what I mean. You need to swatch it. If you're going to block your poncho at the end, you need to block your swatch, and then once that is, you lay it down and you measure in the middle. So you've made a big swatch so that you can measure a couple inches in the middle without any interference from the edges, and you figure out the number of stitches you are getting per inch. And then you're going to have to do math based on that. I'm going to explain it to you. Okay. And stick around after the video if you want a little bit of additional information on approximate yardage you might need to make it based on what yarn you have. So let's go to the tutorial. I have my llama pen and it is time to do some math. This is where y'all have to do some work. Now, you should have done your swatch and you should know how many stitches per inch you get with your yarn and your needle. And you should be doing all this math I'm going to show you based on that. Or if you're the fly by the seat of the pants, throw caution to the wind kind of person, you can just take your yarn and, like, this is Remix Chunky. It's a chunky yarn. It's 100% recycled fibers. It's actually a really cool yarn. And you can look at the suggested gauge. So here's our suggested gauge. The way you read this, on a size 10 needle, you get 14 stitches over 4 inches. Okay, so what that means is 14 stitches equals 4 inches. To get stitches per inch, you simply do 14 divided by 4, and that gives you 3.5 stitches per inch. For a collar, what you might want to do is put one of these guys around your neck and decide how far away from your neck you want it. Make sure that it's big enough to go over your head, because if you just put it around your neck and say I want it at 9 inches, that's never going over your pumpkin head. So in general, something in the 24 to 26 inch range is pretty good for a standard size adult. You can obviously change this if you're making something for a smaller or a larger person. Let's go with the 24 inch circumference goal. So that is 24 inches times 3.5 stitches per inch, which is a total of 84 stitches. This is our base cast on number. Okay, that's actually the number sign, not the hashtag. Okay, we also want an additional 2 stitches for our increase points. Okay, we're going to do a little bit more math. We're going to take our 84 base cast on, divide it by 2, and get 42 stitches. So that's half the cast on. And then we're going to take that 42 divided by 2, and that gives us 21 stitches equals 1/4 of the base cast on number. Why is this important? Well, when we get to the point that we are placing our markers and for our increase points, this is what you're going to want to do. So you're going to knit a quarter, so it's knit 21, make 1, place marker, knit 1, and this is one of these increase points. It comes right after the marker, make 1, and then we're going to knit the half number. So then we're going to knit 42, make 1, place marker, knit 1. That is our second increase point, make 1, and then we're going to knit the final quarter. So then it's knit 21. And this is just a hypothetical based on the gauge for this yarn. You would need to be doing this math based on your own personal gauge from your yarn. Now, if you need to add a stitch, like if these don't come out even, if you need to add a stitch or two to get these numbers to come out nicely, to come out even, 1 or 2 stitches either way, not going to make a big deal. If this number came out to be 85, you could drop it to 84, you can up it to 86, no big deal, right? Well, no, yes. You just want this even 1 or 2 stitches, not going to make a big deal. So here we go. Now, since I'm doing a tiny swatch for you, I'm just using an easy number, which is my base cast on is going to equal 20. And then there's the increase points. So what we're going to do is knit 5, make 1, place marker, knit 1, make 1, knit 10, make 1, place marker, knit 1, make 1, knit 5. Again, so it's quarter, half, quarter, so that you have your increase points evenly distributed through your poncho. So there is your basic math on how this is going to work and how you can customize it to your specific yarn and your specific gauge. Step 1 is to cast on. We're casting on 22 stitches for my mini one as we calculated. What you're going to do is you're going to make a slip knot. There's a whole video on this, so I'm not going to go particularly slow here, but I will link to the video. You're going to wrap your yarn and make an X. Your tail is here. This is your working yarn. You're going to pull out your loop, reach through, grab your working yarn, pull them both down so you have your slip knot. Again, leave a nice long tail. Going to insert my needle through the loop, tighten down my slip knot. I tension the yarn in my left hand. I find that easiest. You cast on however you are most comfortable. I'm going to use the cable cast on because I don't want to calculate a long tail. So I'm going to insert my needle knitwise from left to right through this front leg, wrap my yarn counterclockwise, pull through a loop, place that loop onto the left hand needle. Then I'm going to stick my right hand needle underneath the barrel of my left hand needle between the stitches. Tighten that yarn down just gently. See how that is? Wrap your yarn counterclockwise, pull through, stick on the needle. Again, insert between the stitches and under the barrel, wrap, place, wrap, place, switching to tensioning in the right hand, wrap, pull through, place, insert between. Make sure it gets all the way through like this. Wrap. See, I'm not as good with my right hand, y'all. Nope. It works the exact same way. And if you're comfortable with tensioning in your right hand, it's not a problem. I am not. But I want to do it so people can see how it's done. So between, wrap, pull through, place. I'm going to continue to cast on 22. Now that I have 22 stitches, row 1, we're going to knit flat a little bit. It's just easier. Row 1 is knit until you get to your last stitch. Now this last stitch is optional. You can knit all the way to the end, or you can move the yarn to front between the needles, insert your right hand needle through the loop purlwise, and slip that stitch. Some people just prefer that because we're going to do a tiny seam. You can also just knit that. It's your personal preference. We've knit 1 row. We're going to turn our needles over. Make sure you're not working with the tail. And we are going to knit 3 more rows for a total of 4 rows knit. And that is knit to the end, slip that last stitch. Here are my 4 rows of garter. Now, of course, yours is going to be considerably longer, And you can make it as tall as you want. This is going to function sort of like if you do it a little bit taller, it'll be like a mock turtle. Or if you do it substantially larger, it's going to be like a cowl around your neck. It'll be a straight part before we start the poncho part. That is entirely up to you. So you can definitely continue the garter until you're happy with its height. So what we have to do now is join in the round without twisting, and it's one of the reasons we knit this flat to make it easier to join. Now I am doing magic loop because I have a tiny number of stitches. It should be easier if you're just using a regular 16-inch circular needle. What I'm going to do is slide all my stitches down onto my cable, fold it in half. Now I want you to see the cast on has a right side and a wrong side. So I'm making sure that when I fold it, the right side, this pretty cable, is out. You got to find your working yarn. So here's our tail. I have to make sure my tail is down and that my working yarn is coming up in the center of my circle. Again, I have a video on joining in the round, so we will link to that. I've folded it in half to make my tiny circle, and I'm going to pull this out to make my magic loop. We're going to slide this front needle, all the stitches onto there, and then I'm going to slide, I got to pull it and pull it and pull it until, here we go. We're going to slide those stitches on. And now what we do, because we have this flap, it's very easy to tell that these are all oriented correctly. You don't want it to look like that. See how that's all come over? You want the cast on down. Again, here's the working yarn. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to take, to join in the round, see both my needles are pointing to the right, I'm going to take this first stitch and pop it to the front, and then I'm going to take what is now the second stitch but was the first stitch, and I'm going to pop it to the back. There we go. So now it's joined. I'm going to pull this back needle out, and I'm in position to start knitting. I'm going to place my unique round marker. This marks the beginning / end of round. I'm going to put it on my needle. So we're going to knit 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to place a stitch marker on my left hand needle, and then we're going to make one. I'm just going to use a very simple make one, which involves, what you have to do is find the bar that runs between the stitch that you just knit into right here and the next stitch on the needle. It's this bar right here. You see it? Let me get it up and close and personal. See this bar? And we're simply going to take our right hand needle, stick it underneath that bar, wrap counterclockwise, pull that yarn through, and you have made one. Now this is going to leave a hole. I will link to a video on make one left and make one right. If you don't want holes, you can do that. If you want bigger holes, you can use a yarn over here as an increase. You just need to increase one stitch. Increase a stitch, slip your stitch marker, knit one, and then make one. Again, find that bar. See this bar that goes between, see it goes from here across and then up into the stitch. So we're going to make one. What we're trying to do here is increase, slip marker, knit one, increase. You can use yarn over, you can use our regular make ones that I just showed you, you can use make one left, make one right. But what we did is we knit 5, that's 1/4 of the stitches, make one, knit one, make one. Now we're going to knit 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Place your second, technically third marker on your left-hand needle. Find that bar again, and actually I'm going to do it with my right hand this time. Find that bar, insert your needle underneath the bar, wrap your yarn, pull it through. Slip your stitch marker, knit one, find that bar, insert your right hand needle under it, wrap, pull through the hole, and then we should have 5 stitches left to knit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Poof! There we go. That is the increase round in this pattern. Now, then we have our non-increase round, which is simply knitting the entire round. So this pattern, the body of this poncho, simply alternates between increase round, non-increase round, increase round, non-increase round. Your increase round is what we just did, and this is the non-increase round, which is the easiest part. You're simply knitting. All you're doing is knitting. Just knit, 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 knit. Knit all the way to the end of the round. We will have added a total of 4 stitches. So whatever your start number was, it's now plus 4. And then for the non-increase round, it remains static, and then on the next increase round, you will add 4 more stitches. So that was it. I'm gonna make sure I don't lose my stitch marker. Bloop. Flipping over, cause I'm making it tiny. And we'll do the increase round one more time. Here we go. Need my marker. So the increase round, we're going to knit to our marker. Knit, 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 knit to our marker. We're going to find that bar that runs between the stitches, insert our right hand needle under it, wrap the yarn counterclockwise and pull it through. That's make 1. Slip our marker, knit 1, find that bar, insert under, wrap, pull through, make 1. So again, knit to marker, make 1, knit 1, make 1, then knit to marker. We're just going to the other marker. If you are working on a fixed 16-inch needle, you're not doing all this flippy things that I'm doing. You're just knitting. So knit to the marker, make 1, slip your stitch marker, knit 1, make 1, knit to end of round. And that is it. You work this garter band around the neck, you work join in the round, knit 1 setup round where you place your markers and start the increasing. Then you alternate between no increase round, increase round. The no increase round is just knit the whole round. The increase round is knit to marker, make 1, slip marker, knit one, make one, knit to marker, make one, slip marker, knit one, make one, knit to end of round. Once you reach the point where you feel like it's long enough, or you're fixing to run out of yarn, you want to switch to something that is not going to curl, that the stockinette isn't going to curl. The easiest thing to do is going to be to make it match the collar. So all you have to do is switch to purling from knitting. You want to do this on a non-increase row so you don't have to worry about purling a purl increase. So to do that, all you simply do, see, we've been doing all the stockinette, we're just going to switch to purl. This is a non-increase row, so we don't have to worry about increasing, and we're just going to purl. I'm doing a regular continental purl, which is not how I typically purl. I typically do a variant on the Norwegian purl, which looks like this, which I'm sure is a little bit like, whoa. I'll link to a video where I show how to do that. But again, we simply go through. Now, if you want to maintain this, it will not hurt if you knit that column. That's just a tiny detail. You can do it however you want. I'm going to go ahead and purl it. This was the increase on the previous row. Purl it, and again, you just purl the entire non-increase round. As you can see, I have purled an entire round. You can see the purl bumps along the front and back. To create garter, because we're working in the round, you have to knit a row and purl a row. Now we have to knit around, which is, as we have done before, knit to the marker, knit, 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 knit. Once we get to the marker, we're going to make one. So again, that bar that runs between the stitches, reach under it, grab the yarn, pull it through, slip your stitch marker, knit one, make one, and then knit to your next marker. We're at the marker, bar, make one, slip the marker, knit one, make one, and then knit to the end of the round. How much of this anti-roll pattern you do, this is garter, but you can choose something else, is entirely up to you. It just needs to be enough to prevent the rolling. One round of purl is not going to cut it. With this, I decided to make it match the collar. So since I did 4 rounds of garter here, I did 4 rounds of garter down here at the bottom. And what that was a round of purl, an increase round knit, a round of purl, an increase round knit. Now it's time to bind off. I am going to use the expandable lace bind off, which there is a whole video on. Again, in the description notes for the video, you'll find that, but I'm going to do it real quick. So we're going to slip our first stitch, knit our second stitch, and then we're going to take the point of our left hand needle, insert it from left to right through those 2 legs, the 2 front legs of those 2 stitches on the right hand needle, wrap your yarn counterclockwise, and knit those 2 together through the back loop. Knit the next stitch, insert your left hand needle through those 2 front legs from left to right, wrap the yarn counterclockwise, pull through to knit 2 together through the back loop. I'm going to show you how to do it with the yarn tensioned in your right hand. We're going to knit a stitch, insert the left hand needle through the 2 front legs of the stitches on the right hand needle, wrap your yarn, pull it through, knit those 2 together. Again, knit, insert through the 2 front legs, wrap, pull through, and you just continue doing that until all the stitches are bound off. When you get to the last stitch, you don't necessarily have to continue with the expandable lace. Sometimes I just knit that last stitch and then insert the left hand needle through that front leg and hop it up and over and off the front, just so it's a regular bind off. And then you want to leave at least a 6-inch tail for weaving in ends. I'm going to cut the yarn. See, I've got this nice long tail, and then you pull this through and we have bound off entirely. Then we weave in the end. So I'm taking this where I finished binding off my round, and this is a tapestry needle. This is a plastic one. They come in metal, they come in different shapes. I'm using this one specifically so that it contrasts with my yarn so that you can see it. You put the end that you cut through the eye, and now there's a little bit of not so neatness here. So the way I deal with that is you look at, this is the first stitch you bound off, the one we slipped, and you see you've got this horseshoe right here, and this is a little bump. So I take my tapestry needle and insert it underneath those 2 legs of that little horseshoe from front to back, and I pull that through, and then boop, you can use that to tighten that up. Then you have, here is this horseshoe from the last stitch we bound off, and again I'm going to take my tapestry needle, insert it under both of those little legs under the horseshoe, back to front, and look here, see, we've created essentially a knit stitch, and you pull it until, see, look, it looks seamless. How cool is that? I'm going to take this, and we need to move it. I'm going to go to this next stitch and put it underneath, again, the horseshoe, pull it back. You're not really going to see that, so that we can get and weave in our ends on the wrong side. To weave in our end, what I'm going to do is, you see, again, we look for horseshoe shapes. See this horseshoe shape? It starts here, runs around, and then goes up under this bump. So I'm going to put my needle under this bump and pull it through. And then here is another horseshoe. I'm going to put my needle through that horseshoe. And what we're doing is duplicate stitching. I believe I have a video on this one too. I'll link to a longer video. But what we're doing is simply following the path of the yarn that the yarn is taking to weave in this end. I'm going to turn it sideways so you can really see. So what I do is put it there. And you just keep on weaving in the end. We're not going to do it a whole lot, but you end up weaving in the end. With it still inside out, we need to address the initial gap where we cast it on. If the gap doesn't bother you, if it's always going to be in the back, you can leave it as is. But we're going to take that tail we left when we cast on and seam up. So I'm going to turn it because it's easier for me to work on it like this. And what we have to do is find our edges. And there we go. All you do is see, these are our slip stitches. I'm gonna put my needle, see this little ladder right here? So it's the gap that goes between this slip stitch and the garter. I'm going to insert from bottom to top and pull that like that. And then I'm gonna jump over to this side, find that same little nubby and pull that and pull it. There we go. And you know, it's a little goobery right here. It closed it, but it's not perfect. So I'm going to run this back up to the top and do the same thing that I did at the bottom. I'm going to go under the two legs of the horseshoe. Then I'm going to go under here. And that's the knot. If you wanted to undo the knot, if it bugged you, you can, but it's just closing that up. It's nothing exciting. I'm going to put it back through, and then we're going to weave in on this side. Now I'm just going to go straight down through the garter because it's harder to weave in ends on garter, and go down to this stockinette because it's easier to see the stitch. So I'm going to go under this bump, then under this bump, and go straight down to that bump, and then just keep on going up and down, going from bump to bump, kind of zigzagging while we weave in ends. And you do that for a ways. We're going to turn this right side out. And there we go. There is our poncho. Blocking will help with some of these little jogs at the join. You can wear it like this, or you can wear it with the points in the front. Here it is on Riker. So this is with it worn points front back, or you can wear it where these increase points run down your arms. Now obviously, well, this is the back, so that's where the join was. So we're gonna do it around this way. There, now it's in the back. Obviously this is a little big for Mr. Riker. It's not sized perfectly to him. The neck's a bit big. It should be a little bit smaller, but you get the gist, right? I think it's pretty cool. I hope that you followed along. You might have to replay some bits. It's pretty much essential. You cast on that little flat piece of garter, which can be as tall as you want it to be. Join in the round. Knit a whole bunch of stockinette that alternates between increase round and not an increase round, and then end with some more garter. Now, one thing I do want to note is if you decide to make like a tall cowl, like I mentioned, then you need to leave an extra long tail so you can seam up the back the way I showed you, or you can just add in more yarn. Another thing is, I told you 24 to 26 inches. That's for like a cowl neck. If you want something that's going to sit more down on the shoulders, all you have to do is just take your measuring tape and, figure out how you want it. Might help with something. Just get a rough idea of how you want it to sit. So if I wanted this is like at 41. That's kind of big, but you want to make sure that if I have 41, it's not going to see. 41 might fall off my shoulders. So let's pull it in a little bit more. If I want it fairly open like this, what do we got there? like 35. You can do larger mounts to have it sit with a wider opening. It just depends on what you want and how you can play with it. Because I actually realized, and what I mean, so on Riker, if I pull this down and this down, so if you want more of a neck opening like that, my 24 to 26 inch is more having a neck opening that's going to be up around the neck, but it's your poncho. You can do it however you want. You just need to determine how big you want that neck opening. And I think it could look pretty cool. If you pull it down, I think I like the points. So that's kind of, I don't like that. But with the points in the front, you get almost this sort of V-neck action. We want him in focus. So there you go. Now, I promised I would talk to you a little bit about yardage. If you are doing this in a fingering weight yarn and you want a decent sized poncho, you're going to need at least 2 skeins. I'm not 100% sure. It's just going to be, you're going to need a lot of yarn, and how big you want your poncho is going to determine how much yarn you need. I cannot give you yardage guidance, really specific yardage guidance, because it's going to depend on your yarn usage and your specific gauge. So the chonky that we did all our math on, so this is 139 yards. I mean, if I was going to make a poncho, I think I would probably need at least 4 of these, if not more. So that's, you're going to need quite a bit of yardage. Sport weight, again, I would have at least 2 skeins. DK weight, and again, we're talking about 100 gram skeins. DK weight, you might need 3 to 4 skeins. Worsted weight might need 3 to 4 skeins, possibly more. Chunky, it's just going to depend. So make sure that you just have a lot of yarn. How much yarn are you going to need? A lot, depending on how big you want it to be. Note that the distance you get when you start, like once you finished an entire skein, look at it and how long did you get and how long do you want it to be. But if in the first skein you get the collar and then 3 inches, the next one, remember, we're increasing every other round. So the next one you might only get 2.5 inches, and the next one you might only get 2 inches, because the amount of depth you get is going to be eaten up by how bigger a round it's getting. So you just need to have a lot of yarn. One way to help might be to look at other patterns that are the approximate size of poncho you want and see how much yardage they call for in the yarn weight. I mean, if you want to look at those. But I hope you have a lot of fun making your own ponchos. I'd love to have you come over to Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group and share your plans, share the yarn you're going to. If you have a yarn you want to use and you need a little advice from me, definitely pop over there. Also, if you make it, tag me on Instagram. I'm on there. Tumped Duck. I'm Tumped Duck. TUMPEDDUCK. That's my business name. You will find me everywhere on Facebook and everything like that. So I can't wait to see all the ponchos y'all knit up. And if you get an inkling to use other stitches and work on designing your own, I cannot wait to see them. So if you like this video, please give it the thumbs up. Click that like button. I really appreciate the likes because it lets me know that you want more of this content. And if you would like to be notified whenever I upload new videos, please subscribe to my channel and select notifications. Thank you so much.